How are things? It seems like everything is fine. Let's see if everything is all right. Let's go do the little test. If it's running smoothly, if everything is all right. And we'll begin shortly. The test's centralized. Is that better? Just a minute and we'll start today's live stream. Today's live stream will be quite sophisticated. Let's try. Let's measure this task. Let's see if we can solve it for you in today's live stream. It's really a tricky task, isn't it? Trying to solve the topic of today's live stream. Because that way I think we can find a solution and you can understand a little bit about these things that seem complicated. But if we have a different perspective, we can adjust and improve these things, okay? Just a minute to go. Okay, it's 8 p.m. Let's start our live stream today. And we're on adventure December 10th, 2025. Our live stream today has a strong, very concise theme. Republican capitalism of spirits without bodies. I could even say spirits without human bodies. So it's Republican capitalism. Our mission today, well, we understand what capitalism is, what this Republican capitalism is, right? One thing, what is this? This Republican or capitalist republic, you could also reverse those names. And these spirits without human bodies. And we're going to get a little glimpse into democracy, capitalism, republic, and all that context and get a little feel for it. Stop being naive, stop being silly. We'll understand how things are actually happening and how things are manipulated. And another thing I told you, I used redigari, a term that is HEC. IRD, that term. These are technical terms that are from the West, related to Western education, the industrialization of the wealthy, and Western democracy. But basically, these terms are from the Northern Hemisphere. Look, why am I talking about weird systems? Because in psychology, in research, even in economics, they use terms, and these terms are so generic that they impose themselves on society. It's important for us to know this, and I'm going to start with them so you understand this well. When you have something, for example, you have a biome, you're going to study the biome, then suddenly you'll see the classification of the biome, trees, animals, the river, the mountain, the rocks, the fungus, the plants, the roots. You have the classification of the biome, you classify the entire biome. This way of classifying the biome, of doing, of seeing, of perceiving the biome is your way of perceiving this whole. So you study it in detail. You classify, and you gain an understanding of what you classify. But you have to go back to not classifying in order to understand the biome. Because otherwise you'll be classifying things and suddenly you're doing a scientific, neuroscientific, or even a neuroscientific study. If it were a rock, it wouldn't be neuroscientific. Geological, I'll go there to research rocks and I'll see this rock that's in this biome and I'll analyze the rock and I'll analyze the rock and it will get down to the atomic level of the rock. Hold on a minute. The rock is not the biome, so you're lost. You got lost. But this classification process is already a colonial process. In the classification process, you already tend to go this way or that way. You already tend to get lost. What's this, Jackson? How am I going to get lost? I have to have the classification. I have to have this. Come on, slowly. And that's when I'm going to start putting the idea into you. Republican capitalism, these disembodied spirits, capitalism, and I'm going to mix a lot of things, but it will solidify capitalism. It's something that existed and will exist. It existed before Europe, okay, before 1500, not before Europe, before the invasion of the continent. Capitalism has always existed. Exchanging one commodity for another for land is capitalism. Capitalism has always existed. It will always exist. It's a way of being. The baby is born and immediately begins to practice a certain kind of capitalism, the way it cries, how it calls for its mother, and so on. It's a moment, it's a policy. For example, affections are exchanged. If you're hungry, if you drink, you cry a little, so you have an exchange of affections. Capitalism, yes, will have this exchange. Capitalism and politics are very similar. They're intertwined, but capitalism, in the current context we're experiencing, the current way it makes money from debt. Current capitalism makes money from debt. And if that changes, everything changes. Capitalism continues, but not this charade of making money from debt. Current capitalism makes money from debt. What is capitalism for you to understand today? Capitalism today is like this. Three main things: profit, accumulation, and consumption. Profit, accumulation, and consumption generate something beautiful in the capitalism of one philosopher, another philosopher, which is the invisible hand of the market, and the trickle-down effect. Financial routing, or other terms they use, the invisible hand of the market is what nobody sees and what happens. In capitalism, which makes money through debt, you see and perceive the indivisible hand of the market. You perceive corruption with judges, with congressmen, with senators, with lawyer lobbyists. You have a problem up there at the level of a minister or something similar, or congressman and so on. You'll see that the lawyer lobbyists, you'll only choose those lawyer lobbyists because they're friends with that judge. They travel by plane, by private jet here and there with that judge. That judge is a buddy for trips to Europe, trips to Chile, to who knows where. So that's what lawyer lobbyists do. This is the invisible hand of the market. Money leaks out where you don't know it. A while back, right here in Florida, there was a kid who said, look, there are some market opportunities. And he told a colleague of mine, he's the grandson of a colleague of mine, look, there's a market opportunity that's very interesting. And this colleague of mine came to me and said, oh, it's really interesting. And the market opportunity was this. You rent a computer. You're simply responsible for the computer and you put it in someone's house. Yes, but what am I going to do? Nothing. I just put a computer there. And he will receive and conduct transactions for online courses. I told my friend it's money laundering. It's the invisible hand of the market throwing money back and forth from BTs from the market, throwing money here and there. That's the invisible hand of the market. Nobody sees it. The money rolls around. Nobody sees it. The invisible hand of the market hates Drex because Drex will track the money that goes. There can't be Drex. The invisible hand of the market wants this money to flow back and forth. And this money in capitalism is made of debt. Money is made of debt. And it's important for you to know that capitalism with money is made of debt. What a strange thing. And why is Jacques talking about Republican capitalism? The Republican concept, and this is important for you to know, comes from Greece and Rome. Obviously, white and rich people are citizens. Women aren't, slaves aren't, nor are immigrants. So the Republic is about making rules and imposing those rules on this civilization, on these people. And it doesn't matter who these people are. It doesn't matter what these bodies are. It doesn't matter what the needs of these bodies are. I want the rule to be accepted. That's why I say Republicans, right? Capitalists of Republicans of spirits without bodies. Because it doesn't matter. I impose the rule. There has to be order. So there is no democracy in this. There is no democracy in the Republic because the Republic does not consider the wishes of the local population. It imposes a rule, a norm from top to bottom. But Jackson, how can there not be democracy if people vote? Yes, voting. Voting is a democratic thing, but look how interesting this is. In voting, for example, it's always very clear. If you're a person who believes that the ballot boxes were rigged, believing that the ballot boxes were rigged is your choice, you believed it. But if you know that they spent tens of millions to spread the idea that the ballot boxes were rigged, that is, creating fake news that the ballot boxes were rigged, you will see that this is not democracy. Part of the population is believing something that is not true. And then you'll vote. But that's freedom of speech. Hold on, that's false speech. If I spend tens of millions to make the population believe a lie, and that lie gains notoriety because everyone accepts it, democracy is over. The number 101 achieved that. The number one represents the richest 1% of the population of any country, and of the entire planet as well. The number one achieved that. Most importantly, for you to understand capitalism and republic, the term republic and capitalism, these concepts that came from this, I'll say this weird, all these concepts based on these English terms. And in Portuguese and such, it comes and traps you in a semantic jargon of words, and you have no way out. Let me give you a very clear example. I am a baby, you are a baby, you are a baby, and you are there about 2 years old, something like that, 1 year old, 2 years old, and suddenly your mother is near you, and she starts to move away, and you cry. You cry because you want your mother close. Your mother tells you if you're hungry or not. You cry because you want your mother close, but your mother asks, are you thirsty? Are you hungry? And then finally you are a concept, a word. And this concept and this word enter into that emotion that you tried to express, and that simply at that moment you wanted your mother to be close, but it turned into hunger. These are the concepts I'm talking about. When the republic comes from outside, when Europe comes and imposes the terms, norms, and rules, what's happening is that you're being adjusted to those concepts and rules. And then what you wanted, a mother nearby, becomes something else. So now it's this or that. And it wasn't really what your body wanted, because in Republican capitalism, it's all spirit, it's without a body. Money is generated in corporate entities, not in human bodies. Sometimes there are individual taxpayer identification numbers too, but the money is generated behind the scenes, you understand? And the invisible hand of the market keeps flowing this money back and forth. Our idea is precisely to make this money invert capitalism. Capitalism isn't here and it will continue, but invert capitalism. And what if capitalism were created with money using credit without debit? Credit without debit, that's what I'll talk about in the Citizen Drex program for you. And in a little while, I'll go back to the Citizen Drex program, which is about credit without debit for the individual. Why? Sometimes if you place yourself in social class X, I'll vary this X a little. A social class that receives Bolsa Familia, a Brazilian social welfare program. A social class that's a little above Bolsa Familia and doesn't receive Bolsa Familia. A social class sometimes a little higher in the middle class, a little higher up. And then you look down and think, wow, I'm working really hard. And these guys are receiving Bolsa Familia, a Brazilian social welfare program, without working as hard as I do. That's the idea. You look down and see people struggling, and you look up and see people doing very well. The rich kid's son has already started a startup. He's already on his fourth startup. The first one he started sold for $1 million. It's already bankrupt. The second one he started already sold for $2 billion. Look at that genius. It's bankrupt too. The third one he started, that one was for $4 billion. How cool. It's already bankrupt. He's on his fourth startup. He's the rich kid's son and he's rich. What's happening? The invisible hand of the market. The invisible hand of the market. It's amazing how the invisible hand of the market goes over these things and launders money here and there. Okay, let's go. Capitalism. Capitalism is this exchange. It's almost a policy of exchanging goods and services. The problem with capitalism is that it's creating money from debt. Capitalism creates money from debt. My proposal is that capitalism create money from credit in a human being. So let's go. Their left and right politics, religion, politics. That's interesting to me. Neuroscience, politics, and religion are things I really enjoy. And let's suppose you're a person in India. You have multiple gods. You are polytheistic. You have multiple gods. And I'll tell you, each of these gods, the way you dedicate yourself to them and your faith, is a biological process that brings about internal brain formation structures. It's a biological process. Religiosity arrives and pulls you in. Remember when I told you about Yahami? It's a process of imitation. Then it becomes habits and customs. Then it becomes belief. Then it becomes faith. Faith can then become a dry faith or high performance. Because if it's high performance, you'll now have the process of metacognition based on your faith, adjusting it so you can do well, work well, and avoid entering that so-called zone 3, which I'm talking about, which is very stressful. You stay in zone 2, learn things, and work at high performance, or in zone 1, where you're trying to learn a certain level of attention until you learn to stay in zone 2, and then you'll keep going. You'll keep walking, man. So it's important to know, if you're from India, that all those ideas, those structures, their gods are biological things. All religiosity comes from DNA, from something natural, from natural human DNA. In Brazil, the state has almost been hijacked by Christianity now. Really, why do I say this? Because the executive branch works under the cross. The legislative branch works under the cross. There's a cross there in the legislative branch. The judiciary, if it's not traveling back and forth in little planes on its back, invisible to the market, right? And also doing justice under the cross. I mean, everything under the cross. Today it seems that today in the Chamber of Deputies they began singing Christian hymns of praise under the cross. That is to say, the cross was used by Europe to end all the polyster religiousness that existed on the American continent. Europe destroyed polytheism on the American continent. India continues with polytheism. Here we had it. Europe destroyed it with what? With the cross. So the cross is the symbol of a total human massacre. If you have religiosity with the cross, perfect, relaxed, because you're already stable in the country. It's even difficult not to be Christian in Brazil because it's more complicated. But all religiosity, all faith, the whole process, it comes from a fundamental process, which is the process of brain formation. Regardless of whether you're looking at biblical stories or stories of Indian gods or stories of Native American gods, of which we have plenty, it's all a necessary formation. It's a brain formation. When someone hijacks this narrative, and it's usually hijacked by the 0-1, the richest hijack this narrative. How, Jackson, can someone like 0-1, very rich, hijack the narrative of Christianity? Simple. Which Christian church do you attend? 1. When the church has a problem, it looks at how the wealthiest members decide to solve it. It's the wealthiest who solve it. The vote of the wealthiest is worth more. It will always be worth more. In churches, all churches. And it's not just Christian. I mean, the president really controls these structures. When we start taking away this money being generated through debt, that's when we change society. And we changed capitalism too, the paradigm of capitalism, from generating money through debt, and it starts generating money through drag citizens. Okay, let's go even further. I talked about religion and politics, Yardim. Remember I told you that when these stories of left and right started, it was something in Europe, in England, something like that. And then the employees were on the left and the bosses on the right. This is colonial. Today, employees and standards on the left and the right are set by the number 1. How can you say that, JR? Simple. Left-wing government, maximum profits for banks. Right-wing government, no investigation, but maximum profits for banks. So the invisible hand of the market gives this profit to the banker and financier where nothing is produced and a lot of money is made. Do you understand? We need to figure this stuff out and get out of this left-right deception. And if you're in social class X, a little above the Bolsa Familia program, you'll think it's unfair for someone below you to receive Bolsa Familia. It's unfair to you. And if you're on Bolsa Familia, he says that's fine, but if you leave, it's unfair for someone else to benefit. Yes, but the citizen owns the state where he lives and he has no income. The money only goes to the super rich, the country's debts. We are spending more than a trillion a year. That trillion a year basically feeds the number one, referring to Bolsonaro. Basically, number one, I always tell you that corruption in Brazil, the invisible hand of the market, or corruption in Brazil, is always in the order of billions. It's billions, you understand? For example, the notoriety of something, of a fake news story, I want everyone to understand that that fake news is true. 10, 20, 30 billion. I can make that news become a truth if I have media coverage, if I'm number one. It's not so expensive for someone who has a billion. Number one is someone who has more than a billion, okay? So you can manipulate things, move society, shift the notoriety of true or false facts. Everyone ends up believing it. The number 01 sets the agenda for both the left and the right. The number 01 sets the agenda for both the left and the right. So what's the difference, Jackson, between the left and the right today? The left is trying to adjust a little more to put more money into the poor, something like Bolsa Familia, family allowance program, and trying to see universities standards, but the banks are also making maximum profits on the left. Interest rates are at 15%. Interest rates are at 15% in the mood. That's one point. So the left is there. But the left also continues to hold back the process of debt-based capitalism. It doesn't accept retail CBDC yet. Retail CBDC is the bank making the money, and the money suddenly could be created, citizen. But even today, he hasn't accepted it. Let's see if he might accept it someday. And the left also does something interesting. The left believes that suddenly, at some point, justice might appear and allow an investigation. The federal police has more autonomy in left-wing governments. In right-wing governments, a different process occurs. The investigation is blocked. Today, for example, we saw yesterday and today how the chamber is blocking the investigation process in some way, using the subterfuge of let's use amnesty with Bolsonaro. Banco Master went wrong. The invisible roller coaster of the market went wrong. It's really going wrong. Some ministers are involved. Politicians are involved. Then Bolsonaro comes in as a scapegoat to hide the news and makes all these jokes. Look, it's very complicated. The parliamentary amendments went wrong too. So it's a mix of things to cover it up. But who's there? Let's take a congressman, a corrupt congressman. If his job was to be a politician and he has no other function, no other way, money only comes from debt. He has a family. He went in. He doesn't have much of a way out because the capitalist system is a system that thrives on debt. And he looks at a congressman above him who did very well in a big deal, and when he does the same, he gets arrested, which becomes almost unfair because the desire to get ahead, to pull off a big deal, to commit a big theft, a major corruption scheme, to be well off in life is structural. It's kind of natural because that's how the system, the structure works. Whoever is at the top, the number one, is earning billions, not by stealing from the invisible parts of the market. It's organized crime. What is organized crime? It's based on established laws and regulations. I want to illegally seize a strip of land on the borders. There you go. It passed in Congress. Now I can seize it. It'll be in my name. I want to seize such and such. So this invisible hand of the market controls deputies, senators, and keeps controlling things. It's the big hand. It's the money flowing here and there with parliamentary amendments. So we have a very serious problem. And then the right wing, when it comes in, doesn't want to investigate because, man, they'll seize the investigation. They'll target the small fry again. If I'm a congressman and I'm starting to do well, they'll go after me and not those who are above me. So the justice system is a bit complicated in that sense because doing well in politics with these amendments, with these things, it's a structure that tends towards theft. It tends to flow with the invisible hand of the market, you understand? So, what we have to do is change capitalism in the sense of capitalism being about creating money through credit without debit and debiting the citizen. This is a central bank issue. Do we have problems? Of course, there will be problems. Of course, there will be a lot of problems. Okay, for example, the number one, whoever has a lot of money can control the entire rice harvest. Remember back when there were problems in Rio Grande do Sul and people said, so the price of rice is going to go up. Then the government said, so we're going to open it up to imports. No, it's not going to go up. It's not going to go up because those who are very rich buy the rice and hold on to it. They hold on to it or the price goes up. And inflation is a very serious problem. Even with capitalism, with money originating from credit without debit, inflation is a very serious problem because inflation breaks the system. So we have to have control. We have to make proper use of the money. Parliamentary amendments are not making proper use of the money. Parliamentary amendments are being used as bargaining chips for the invisible hand of the market, and we don't know how this corruption works. So did you notice we need to start being a little more alert? If you're on the left, be alert. Look left or right, the number 101 sets the agenda. There's no way around it. He's the one setting the agenda. The topics you look at, what you saw today, the issues that were raised usually have number one behind them controlling those agendas. And I always say the selective waste collection on your street isn't being discussed now. That's your issue. This lack is in your body. This lack is in your being. Being is about feeling a bodily need and seeing what is good for you. And that's the proposal I have for you today. That is Republican capitalism and disembodied spirits. Why disembodied spirits? When you follow something without metacognition, if you follow something without critically examining where the materiality of that thing lies, where the basic structure of its reality, factual reality, not notorious reality is, notorious reality is what everyone thinks it is, and everyone is wrong. That notoriety, the number one, referring to a political figure, creates it. 10, 20 million people can make you believe, for example, that the elections were rigged, perfect, and it's possible to do that. So you see that notoriety is worthless. You have to look and start perceiving the factual things. And if you don't look and only follow your pastor, your leader, your politician, you are a follower, then your body, you no longer receive, you no longer listen to your body and its needs because you have an ideology, and it's just ideology without a body. You are using your body to defend an ideology. It's a loose spirit, it's not a soul. The body isn't connected there. Feeling, it's just a defense of a heavy ideology. So your body is being used. It comes back to you. Breathe today, drink water, walk, feel the air, the space where you are. Feel things, feel the need to see how this capitalism, the exchange of goods and services, but hold on, the profit, the accumulation and consumption, how is the planet doing? Look at the plastic, look at the garbage, look at the garbage. That's capitalism. And the Republic speaks like this, these norms and these rules. Yes, but these norms and these rules are not helping you in your region. Should I go out into the streets and rebel? No, talk to your city councilor. It's your city councilor who will have to solve this. In your city, vote for the councilor closest to your neighborhood. Talk to him. He has to solve it. Oh, but he won't solve it because they're all corrupt. No, forget it. Change your mindset. Because the councilor will solve your problem if you have a certain level of friendship with him, if he becomes convinced that we can change this system. Republican capitalism. And with the 1988 Constitution, there was a greater opening for social good, for democracy, true democracy. Yes, this massification of social networks on top of that. So there is a path, and this falsehood of expression, the right of me to put 20, 30 million people to make everyone believe this or that right will soon have to end. I cannot have the right to lie to an entire population, to lie, because I'm going to put 40, 50 million people to lie. So you believe that the nails were fraudulent. Then you get angry. At whom? At the enemy who fraudulently manipulated the nails. And is that a lie? And how does that make you feel, right? And what is democracy then? But this happens with both the left and the right. It's not a single factor. You have to take a look and see from your own head what I'm going to do, who I'm going to go back to, how I see reality. And regarding reality, I created some avatars a while ago of how you see reality, which is a reference point for how you look at things. To understand things, you can look through brain chemistry, through the culture you live in, through your emotions. You can look at things through your altered state of consciousness. You can look at things through mathematics, logic, and reason. You can look at things through your DNA and your spirituality. You can look at things through what you feel in your own space. You can also look at things through what I call jivasa. Jivasa is when you create a spiritual collectivity, everyone together here. So each perspective is a different reference point for the same things. And it's the combination of perspectives that creates something close to reality. It's not just one perspective. It's not, I'm right, let's go, let's build, let's see, let's make capitalism change a little, let the republic truly be more democratic. And for it to be democratic, talk to your city councilor about your needs, not the agenda you received online. The agenda that you need, that you have to resolve your issues and your needs, the garbage collection on your street, the school, the kindergarten for your son and your daughter, the special care for our elderly through the SUS, Brazilian public healthcare system, is not being provided. Why isn't the SUS visiting the homes of older people? How are things going, everyone? How's the process going? This process is important for us to liberate us and leave us with bodies, not just ideas. Spirits without bodies are just ideas which have nothing to do with reality, ideas of others even. A good part of our ideas, yours and mine, for a long time were not ours. We would never have had them. They were imposed through the ideology of people who even paid to gain notoriety. In things that are lies, that aren't true, neuroscience and research also deal with this, with these technical terms and the cutting, and then when you conclude a tiny piece of something that will never see the whole picture. You are responsible for seeing the whole picture. You have the intelligence for that. Live your body, feel your body, and from it you have your opinions, and opinions change day by day according to what your body is experiencing. And don't be swayed by fake news, even if it's notorious. Everyone is. Where's the materiality? Where's the reality? And does this notoriety benefit your life, or was it simply a ploy to get you to vote for this or that person? Folks, that's what I wanted to leave you with. Republican capitalism of spirits without bodies, only ideas, without materiality, without the need for your body. That's the focus, you and your body, your way of being, of breathing, of feeling good. Because if you're in zone 3 and you're very tense, you're easily kidnapped. Open zone 2, be well pleasant with your praise, with your Christianity. If you are Christian, with your Buddhism. If you are Buddhist, be well aligned, at peace with yourself, with your body. A big hug. See you next Wednesday.